Have you ever had that feeling of, what are the other people thinking about me? What, they're gonna say, you actually enter in a room, in a party, and, you feel all the kind of thoughts inside your mind, of actually, voices or this and that. And, you have to understand, a simple, briefly fundamental principle about we, right? So basically, a lot of what we have in mind is based on a fear-based model, right? So we actually have to really understand what actually, our thoughts regarding, what we want and what we don't want, right? And it's actually a way to defend, our ego, right? Why we actually fear sometimes what the other people will think about us, right? Because we want to defend our ego, and I don't want to explain you the biological stuff or the evolutionary stuff, the sociology stuff, but basically, you know, truth be told, the only thing that differentiates us as the human species and basically the Neanderthals was that we actually could have the sense of fear of danger of what was around us, right? And that's actually why we actually survive it, right? So as people, we are terrified to make mistakes, right? That mistakes, ABC, right? We always have the kind of feedback inside our mind, and I just want to explain you how to have how to stop this, because most of the time it's not going to help you, right? Truth be told, it actually can help, sometimes reflect, but 99% or 90% of the time is just a waste of time. And the one thing that I'm gonna show you right now, right, it took me a lot of years to understand this. And truth be told, plateaus and wherever you're doing your sports problem, business problems, 90% of the time are not the sports problem, business problems, right? Are just personal problem that reflects what we're trying to accomplish, right? And do not try to mistakes, what actually the other people want and what you actually want, right? Because you have to understand there's your will and the other one will, right? So truth be told, you are going to face different people with different values, and sometimes they're not even conscious about that, right? So it's totally normal, and just be fucking good at say what you're trying to accomplish, right? So when it comes to mistakes and how they all face, right, you can have the best result actually by asking your friends what they actually think about your strengths, your weaknesses, right? Because truth be told, we as persons, like, we have a good intuition about ourselves, but it's very difficult sometimes to have objective data about an objective representation of ourselves, right? Just thinking critical about ourselves, right? So one of the most practical ways to do that is just select 3-4 friends or even families that know you really well, right? And ask them what are my main three strengths, what are my three main weaknesses, and really what they think about, right? Just asking, I'm starting this thinking about myself, and I just trying to accomplish something, right? And your thoughts will actually help me a lot, right? So your strong points, right? Your weaknesses, and what actually are your unique values and principles, right? And then just embrace silence, right? Right, because as I told before, we all fear that kind of moment, thinking about what actually the other things are thinking about ourselves. And truth be told, just wait, just be silent, and when they reply, or even if you talk face to face, just say thank you, right? Because our first instinct is to say, this is true, this is not true, right? But just get it. And once you get what the other are thinking about you, and once you got this kind of piece of the puzzle, acknowledge that, and make it your treasure, right? Because that is one of the best thing and basic gold about what actually you can improve, right? And understand what actually your advantages. I just want to summarize all these concepts in three main steps, right? In three main principles. This it all starts down with being humble about being wrong, right? There's nothing wrong about that. Too much words, but yeah, truth be told, you're gonna be wrong a lot of times, and you're gonna be right. But there's nothing worse than actually not understanding where you're going to, something that is going to lead you to a really good path, and the one that is going to lead you to a really bad path. And then seek feedback, right? Seek constantly feedback from others, not just about yourself, right? But also the things that you are trying to accomplish, right? And I found myself honestly sometimes being too rigid about feedbacks, because it also depends about the kind of person that you're gonna face into, right? What's the level of mastery, how they're gonna pose to you, right? So it's not just about being so rigid about what the other says, right? But it's an important key thing just to acknowledge that, right? Even if you acknowledge that, you are 50% of the path. And the third thing is looking to truth rather than being right. So truth should be one of the highest values in yourself, right? Because it always leads to something that at the end of the day, you look right or you look wrong, you have to understand things what they are, right? And basically truth and looking objective things for what they are is more about that, right? And looking right is just fueling your ego, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to separate this kind of true things, right? Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you on the next one.